Dollars. It is a number big enough to make almost any company flinch.
Yes, and in a landmark settlement today, Meta agreed to pay up to that much over allegations that Facebook and Instagram were deliberately designed with features that kept children hooked, while the company downplayed the risk. Meta denies wrongdoing.
We're announcing the largest big tech settlement in American history. The settlement is with Meta, the owner of Facebook and Instagram, and North Carolina's share will be up to $645 million with a guaranteed minimum of $451 million. However, the main purpose of this settlement is not money. It is to protect kids and empower parents.
It's not about money. Let's talk about that, though. We wanted to put that enormous number into perspective. How big is $17 billion to a company the size of Meta? It's an almost unimaginable amount of money to most of us, right? But, well, Meta's not most of us. Last year alone, the company generated, look at this, $201 billion in revenue. In 2024, it was $165 billion. 2023, nearly $135 billion. Add up the last 5 years, and Meta brought in roughly $735 billion. Now, we know we're throwing a lot of big numbers at you here, but let's really bring this into focus for you. Again, take a look at that number, $735 billion over 5 years. So this $17 billion settlement, while it's historic, it amounts to about 2.3% of Meta's revenue over those 5 years. At its 2025 pace, Meta generated that much revenue in roughly 1 month. And Meta doesn't have to cough up that $17 billion all at once, by the way. Those payments are going to be spread out over years. So what did Wall Street make of this landmark settlement? Well, Meta stock actually went up today. When word got out this morning, the stock price, you see it there, it shot up by about $18 a share. It gave some of those gains back later in the day, but still closed up $6 a share, about a 1% gain. But focusing only on the dollars misses a big part of this agreement.
Meta was telling parents everywhere that their top concern was the safety of their children, and it wasn't. Their top concern was making a buck. And they did it while ignoring the risks that they were creating for those children.
Well, the state's accused Meta of designing features to keep young people engaged and alleged that the company knew some children struggled to regulate how much time they spent on the apps. Meta has denied wrongdoing. And look at how much time we're talking about here. Look at this behind me. According to the American Psychological Association, 23% of teenagers spend less than 2 hours a day on social media. 26%, well, they spend about 4 hours a day. 14% spend up to 5. And here's the big number here that we're talking about. That one marked in red. 37% of teens spend more than 5 hours a day. So the potentially bigger impact of today's settlement may be what happens on your child's device. Once the agreement gets court approval, Meta will have to make significant changes for users 13 to 17. A default 2-hour delay limit across Instagram and Facebook. Limits on late night scrolling between midnight and 6 a.m. And prompts interrupting continuous scrolling. Notifications shut off during school hours, and post-like counts will be hidden by default. Parents will also get more control over those settings. It's important to note here, though, the algorithm itself is not changing.
Now, the Carolinas will get some of that landmark settlement. North Carolina guaranteed, you heard it there, at least $451 million, could ultimately receive $645 million. Attorney General Jeff Jackson asking lawmakers to put that money towards things like after school and summer programs, crisis hotlines, and school health personnel. Now, in South Carolina, you see that number here. The Attorney General, Alan Wilson, his office says the state will receive approximately $274 million from this settlement.
But for many parents, the hope goes beyond the money, that this settlement pushes not just Meta, but the entire social media industry to put stronger safeguards in place for kids. And that may ultimately be how this settlement is measured, not just by the billions Meta has to pay, but by what happens next.
Yeah, we'll